The regional assemblies of the Northwest and Southwest regions adopt their budget for the remaining semester of the 2021 at rather stormy separate budgetary sessions, with projects in the social and economic sectors occupying a place of choice. The cost of building materials in Cameroon goes on a steady climb on the market, with consumers and business persons crying foul at an inflationary trend that is going rather unchecked. The Pan-African Parliament degenerates into knockabouts over the issue of electing a new bureau for the institution, with the MPs almost coming to blows as SADC member countries dress for a rotation at the helm of the presidency. Those are our lead stories. Hello and thanks for joining us. I am Ben Menopufong and this is the 7:30 News.
I urge you once again to put on your face masks, to wash your hands regularly, and to consult a physician or any other health personnel if you notice any symptoms. This is the only way to save lives and to curb the spread of the virus.
You're welcome once again. We open tonight in the Northwest region, where the Regional Assembly has adopted a budget of over 3 billion CFA francs, which it intends to tackle projects in the social and economic sectors that fall within its scope of competence for the remaining half of the 2021 year. The Assembly members have been airing their views over the draft budget or the adopted budget at a rather stormy session in the regional headquarters, Bamenda. Winston Lebgan now joins us from Bamenda with details of today's deliberations.
The brainstorming session that came up with the presented budget took place behind closed doors for over 2 hours. More than 3 billion francs CFA to cover domains considered as the Regional Assembly's priorities, such as youth employment, promotion of agro-pastoral activities, road maintenance operations, and boosting economic activities in the Northwest. Some members of the House argued that they needed more time to study the budgetary lines. Prior to the budgetary session, members of the two houses met in the plenary session, that is the House of Divisional Representatives and the House of Chiefs, during which the priority concerns were outlined, and the President of the Regional Assembly, Professor Anglophone III, announced various partnership agreements brokered at home and abroad, with a view to helping them do their job successfully.
And councillors in the Southwest region are equally immersed in the deliberations of their maiden budgetary session to examine and adopt a budget for the Regional Assembly for 2021. The three-day deliberations will be marked by the defining of an operational framework that will guide proceedings in the Southwest Regional Assembly. Details with Olivia Mbaye from CRTV Southwest.
The proposed budget of the Southwest Regional Assembly for 2021 under examination for subsequent adoption stands at 2,750 million francs CFA. The amounts, which will be entirely financed with subventions from the state, will be used essentially to put in place relevant structures of the Assembly at its state of gestation, cover operating expenses, capacity building, amongst others.
The budget will be used to run the affairs of the Regional Assembly between now and December 2021. There are so many things to be done.
It is a bicameral assembly, thus divisional representatives and members of the House of Chiefs are holding separate deliberations for onward harmonization. The representative of the state, Governor Bernardo Kaliabilai, says the budget should enable the regional councillors comb the nooks and crannies of the region, identify priority needs of the population, and design realistic goals to meet these needs.
Now, if you intend venturing into the construction industry in Cameroon, then you have to begin revising your budget given the current rise in the prices of building materials. Cement, iron rods, and tiles have experienced significant hikes in their prices, leaving most people in the construction industry at the mercy of the building material vendors. Ewane Epole went finding out the reasons for the inflation that has left individuals and enterprises crying foul.
Cement, iron rods and ties are some of the construction materials that have experienced significant rates of price increase.
We especially face difficulties with cement, which has increased in price in the market. We go from 4,350 to 4,900.
If the government, before they plan 1 year before, when they plan, they take 3 months to sensibilization.
Economic operators now face some challenges.
At the beginning, we give them an estimate of how much their construction is going to cost them, and they give us the money according to the phases we are to do in the construction. And when you are carrying out a phase, and then there's a sudden increase in the price, you face difficulty to go to the client and tell him that there's an increase in the price. He does not understand that.
We face so many challenges. First and foremost, contracts that were already ongoing, we are obliged to complete them because we already signed contracts with our clients. Some of them may understand with us and come in to add a little bit of finances. Some will not just want to hear because we already have a signed agreement already.
Not only are projects delayed, but there are thousands who their jobs are at stake due to the rising prices of construction materials.
Because of the ongoing inflationary trend in the sector, all eyes are turned towards the Ministry of Trade that is invested with the powers of checking and balancing market trends in the sector. Now that prices are headed for the sky, should mean commerce be deemed as having been overpowered by circumstances? Clarice Aretakam attempts an answer.
Price control and ensuring that all actors of the trade scene play fair, while a number of mechanisms are being enforced to ensure that inflation is kept in check and that products remain affordable. The fact, however, remains about imports becoming more costly in recent months.
The price of some materials like iron rods has risen. It is the same with steel, which is 60 to 70% higher at the global level. Added to this is the cost of transportation, which has evolved considerably.
Explanations running along these lines have been put forward by officials, importers and wholesalers alike.
We have to review certain issues with all actors in order to strike a balance and redefine strategies. Wholesalers, producers and importers have been enjoined to show proof of more resilience.
Opinions nevertheless hold that it is the opportunity for local entrepreneurs to get their acts together and invest more in building the construction sector of Cameroon.
As it stands, consumers have seemingly been left on their own, as neither consumer protection associations nor the National Consumer Council seem to be living up to the dreams and aspirations of the consumers. In the eyes of the consumers, therefore, both organs now cut the image of a toothless bulldog, as none of them or none of their complaints that they have brought before these organs have met a favorable answer. Constantine Bomb tells us how.
This is one of the facilities in Yaoundé that produces building materials. Even though these materials are produced locally, the prices of recent have increased, frustrating the dreams of many Cameroonians who had planned to complete their homes. Some of their complaints have been received by the Consumer Rights Protection Association.
Also noticed that things are increasing in the market, but in the first place, we are trying now to, meet decision makers to make things to be easier for consumers. We don't know when they are going to react.
They are still to take a lead on this recent price increase of some building materials, as no official statement has been made public from them.
For the moment, I cannot say that we have already started something in that angle, but we are...
For now, consumers have been left to themselves, but those who have credible records with producers of building materials can buy on credit.
So when they come and they cry, we do all possible means to satisfy our customers. At times we can offer to give them on credit.
The hike of prices has caught the attention of the authorities, with the public waiting for the decisions that will be taken to address the situation.
And the issue of low-cost housing continues to remain a difficult equation for the government to tackle in the nation's economic capital. Despite all the efforts in the past and given the ongoing seductive appeals from the Housing and Urban Development Minister, low-cost houses continue to remain a major preoccupation for government and Douala city dwellers. Alphonse Abongwa went investigating how, against the backdrop of the appeals from the government and how the private sector can step in to salvage the situation.
The problem is critical. Less than half of the close to 5 million inhabitants of Douala can afford to live in a decent house. Government's social housing scheme alone does not adequately address this equation. Housing and Urban Development Minister, in a recent visit to Douala, invited the private sector to step in.
There are 2 million housing deficits. This means even if you construct 100, 1,000 or 2,000 houses today, you will have buyers because the demand is high.
Out of this invitation, this 27-hectare land in Gombe, Douala 5 subdivision, is already being prepared by an investment firm in the lodging sector to erect some 2,500 low-cost houses for the ordinary income earner in Douala.
Houses on 17 hectares will be given to very low-income earners, while those built on 10 hectares will be handed to middle-income earners.
The private investors, however, solicit government's intervention in terms of certain fiscal exonerations. Let government grant us the possibility to be free from taxes like value-added tax and customs duties. This will permit every average Cameroonian own a house. This low-cost housing project is expected to be realized within the next 5 years.
And now on to those sad notes before we continue in this newscast. The death has just been announced of Jacqueline Kung Abiseke, former Minister of State Property, Surveys and Land Tenure. Family sources say she died in a hospital in Yaoundé today after an illness, and we will be coming back with details in our subsequent newscasts. The press in Cameroon was today discussing the issues impeding their economic mainstay at a press luncheon organized by the National Communication Council in Yaoundé. Panelists, comprised for the most part of media experts, exchanged views on the role and importance of state financial assistance to the media industry in the country. Cynthia Sabchala reports on the media finance discourse, as was chaired by the President of the National Communication Council, Peter Esoka.
The economic challenges of the media in Cameroon tabled at the luncheon with the National Communication Council centered on a couple of issues such as the access to publicity, a major source of revenue.
We don't have a distribution company in this country as it stands. There's this problem of advertising. When a newspaper cannot have adverts, you must find it difficult to operate.
For over 3 hours, men and women of the media debated on the policies and economic measures taken, notably the question of government subvention.
It is not a favor that government is doing by giving subvention to the private press, because we contribute to nation building. in so many ways. A country's democracy is measured by the vibrancy of the private press.
In his address, the president of the National Communication Council reassured that recommendations made will be channeled on, but urged the press to re-examine themselves.
Before you create a media enterprise, you must be ready to support it before you ask for any government subvention. You don't create a media organ with the idea that government will subvent that organ.
At this year's Press Freedom Day, a faction of the Cameroon press had laid these grievances with the hope that appropriate solutions will be found soonest.
The rural woman will soon be playing a frontline role in cocoa production in Cameroun, and this thanks to the initiative launched today in the Senegal Maritime Division of the Littoral region. The objective of the initiative that seeks to boost the sustainability of cocoa production was underscored by the Ministers of Trade and Agriculture, who reassured the beneficiaries of a ready market for the Grade 1 cocoa that they are being called upon to produce. Clarice Array-Takang reports.
Making the rural woman autonomous and financially independent, it is a goal of the Rural Woman in Cocoa Initiative, a project packed with proceeds for both growers and the state if the locality emerges into being one of the main cocoa producing basins in the country.
We are adapting our cocoa sector on requirements, the new requirements of international market. Those requirements, involve the woman in cocoa growing. It's important that they now prepare themselves.
The creation of cocoa plantations, the training of women in cocoa farming, as well as other crops and the supply of inputs are some of the support mechanisms.
The place in the woman in food security is very important to give a new impetus of the production of cocoa, even the implementation of the quality of cocoa.
Today we are striving for better cocoa. If our women are part of it, before you know it, 2, 3, 4 years to come, we'll be selling cocoa in Cameroon than what we are selling today.
Commercialization and networking are amongst the actions to enforce for the success of the 4-year program. 320 women are targeted across the country. Access to 1,200 seedlings and at least half an hectare of land will be made available for each beneficiary.
And you're watching the 7:30 news on the Cameroon Radio Television, the CRTV. We are beaming live from Yaoundé. The rehabilitation as well as the safety and security of students and staff of one of Cameroon's oldest government technical training institutions, the Government Technical High School Colbison here in Yaoundé, was at the center of the board meeting of the institution that was holding on its campus today. The board members requested the immediate resumption and completion of work on the school fence, whose dilapidating state is rendering the maintenance of discipline on campus rather difficult. Rayanato Sali reports on the outcome of today's deliberations.
Completing the school fence of the government bilingual technical high school Colbison is urgent given the rising cases of indiscipline. This is a priority to the school board holding its second annual session.
We've been having problems here, but mostly caused by students who are of other schools. Since our fence is still open, it's not yet 100% closed, so they infiltrate, they come in and they disturb our students. Those of our students here were able to manage.
While counting on partners to chip in funds for the completion of the fence, the school is working on producing more surveillance cameras and drones to boost security on campus and filter movements therein.
The board is proposing to meet with parents to give solution to insecurity.
The disciplinary crisis caused by the lack of a school fence is worrying to authorities of the 29-year-old school, which wants to keep its reputation as one of the most prestigious technical schools in the Central African sub-region.
Despite our efforts, COVID-19 plunged many families into mourning and seriously hampered the functioning of our economy and society.
The management of the Douala Referral Hospital is pushing ahead with its campaign to have more Cameroonians vaccinated against COVID-19. The hospital sources say over 200 persons have so far been administered the vaccines, with prospects of the trend going even higher. Let's now join Baldwin Sama with the director of the health outfit, Professor Henry Luma, for an on-the-spot evaluation of the ongoing campaign. Hello, Baldwin. Come on board.
Good evening to you, Ben Menopofong, and welcome to the Douala Referral Hospital, where from the last time we were here, just about 100 persons had themselves vaccinated against COVID-19. So far, many other persons have been vaccinated. Let's find out from our guest, Professor Henry Luma, the Director General of the Douala Referral Hospital, what has changed so far. Good evening to you, Prof.
Yes, Mr. Sama, good evening. You are once more welcome to the Douala General Hospital.
Explain to us what has changed so far, talking about ongoing vaccination against COVID-19 here.
Yes, thank you. What has changed, in fact, is because we are now having a few more people who are coming in. It's going slowly but surely. From 100 people who came, we now have 326. So you see, it's more than a 3 times increase. Of these, about 40% are medical personnel. And the information we give them is that just get vaccinated. Any of the vaccines available is good for you. So as of now, we encourage them to come for vaccination. The fact that there are very few side effects, because imagine that only minor side effects happen from the 326. Only 7 people had slight fever, body aches, and that is all about it. And they have continued taking their vaccines. The second good thing is that about almost 45% of those who were vaccinated have had their second dose. So you see that it means that the vaccine is well tolerated and people can come back to have their second dose.
Thank you so much, Professor Henry Luma, for all those pieces of information. We are encouraging the population here in the nation's economic capital. Continue having yourselves vaccinated. Visit the different vaccination centers and have yourself vaccinated against the coronavirus. Back to you, Ben Menopofo.
Thank you very much, Baldwin Sama, as we look forward to having you in yet another health establishment. The new head of the European Union delegation to Cameroon, Philippe Van Damme, says the EU will continue efforts to strengthen cooperation with the Cameroon government, both at the humanitarian and developmental levels. He made the statement today in Yaoundé following an audience granted him by the Prime Minister, Joseph John Gute. The head of government equally granted an audience this Tuesday to the new British High Commissioner to Cameroon, Christian Denis Maclure. Star Building correspondent Christian Chatham has more.
This made in contact between the new head of the EU delegation in Cameroon. The maiden contact between the head of the EU delegation and Prime Minister Joseph John Gute comes at a time when the European Union is engaged in diverse sectors: agriculture, health, infrastructure and local development.
We discussed in very broad terms the overall status of the partnership between the EU and Cameroon, explaining a little bit our ambitions and the nature of that partnership, which is increasingly deepening. We have a political dialogue tomorrow.
For the new British High Commissioner, the session also served to examine pressing issues in Cameroon-UK ties.
We discussed the climate conference, COP26, which is being held in the United Kingdom in November, the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions, and the importance of protecting the population.
During the two audiences, Prime Minister Joseph John Gute voiced Cameroon's willingness to continue cooperating with bilateral partners for positive change.
Guinness Cameroon has rewarded 25 young girls from major engineering schools in Cameroon who took part in its first ever female professional internship program. The initiative is part of the Supply Female Internship Program, a platform launched 6 months ago, which aims at encouraging female students in the field of engineering. Madon Kwele is in Douala with details.
Guinness is good for you. The strength of this slogan lives on and has come to effect a positive change in the lives of these 25 young female Cameroonian engineers. They have tasted the pleasure of benefiting from the promotional offers of Guinness Cameroon. This was through the professional experience they have acquired in the industrial environment of the company that seeks to achieve a 50% female representation in its organization. A challenge it has succeeded to outsmart.
Our vision is to ensure that we are an inclusive company where everyone, irrespective of their origin, can feel comfortable, develop and give the best of themselves. To truly accomplish this ambition, we have taken a particular interest in promoting the integration of women in industry-related jobs.
For these young female engineers, the 6 months professional internship was an opportunity to demonstrate that female engineers are not only capable of carrying out their missions in a professional environment, but can also acquire practical knowledge. We've proven that the industrial milieu is not only for men. It sure has many challenges, but we can overcome them to attain our objectives. We exchanged with real professionals and experts who taught us many things that will help us tomorrow in the field. Guinness Cameroon has decided to compensate these ladies for their contributions in carrying out the company's activities.
We are really proud. 20 of those ladies will go on to be employed by Guinness, and this is not the first and only instance where we will do this. We are committed to doing this every single year and bringing through quality young Cameroonian ladies within our organization.
Guinness Cameroon intends to sign partnerships with more leading training institutions in order to offer same opportunities to a more varied and wider range of beneficiaries.
Chaos continues to prevail at the Pan-African Parliament as the search for a new leadership for the continental law-making institution has degenerated into a physical brawl. The body had to elect a president and 4 vices to replace the outgoing team, but things got ugly as the honorable MPs interrupted the vote with SADC countries calling for a rotation at the helm of the institution. As Bo Bernard Fonkamuta reports, elections at the PAP have always been heated and scandalous, but what is unfolding there now is unprecedented.
For a relatively new organ of the African Union, still seeking full legislative powers, elections at the Pan-African Parliament have curiously been fiercely contested over the past decade. This time around, Cameroonian Honorable Roger Nkododang was no longer a candidate, no longer bureau executive, but nonetheless wanted to help deliver a smooth transition to a problem-plagued body. In this amateur footage from inside the plenary session of the Musandele Hall earlier this week, we see how the situation declined. Honorable Barbara Rhodesy from Zimbabwe grabbed a ballot box. As SADC MPs insisted for a rotation, the outgoing president tried to stop her interference. The scenes seen this week shocked several observers. The session was suspended by the clerk, with elections postponed sine die. In this complex political drama, worthy of Game of Thrones, it is worth recalling that the last half of Nkododang's term was never completed, as the outbreak of COVID-19 made it impossible for him to be sworn in following elections in Cameroon.
Let's talk sports now. Bulgarian cyclist Ivanov Borislav today won the 5th lap of the ongoing international cycling tour of Cameroon, just like he did with the 4th lap yesterday. He covered the 109-kilometer circuit race in Douala in 2 hours 17 minutes. As Baldwin Sama reports, the yellow jersey still remains with Frenchman Lionel Alexandre.
The national anthem of France, sung for the 5th time, Asthmatic Sport of France through Alexandre Lionel, keeps the yellow jersey after the 5th lap. During a short circuit race in Douala, the cyclists had 8 rounds through different neighborhoods with a few breakaways noticed. Cameroonian cyclist Arthus Taylor and Yao Gaji of the SNH Velo Club imposed a breakaway that was short-lived. The last rounds were decisive as Borislav Ivanov of Bulgaria outsprinted the pack to cross the finish line first in 2 hours, 17 minutes, 26 seconds.
Race, I managed to escape in a moment when the group stopped and they were all dead. So it was a moment when you're on the limit, you have to risk. Sometimes the risk is worth it, but sometimes not. So this time it paid off.
The first Cameroonian cyclist, Clovis Kamzong Abesolo, is overall 3rd and 2 seconds behind the yellow jersey, as the cyclist will this Thursday cover 156.6 kilometers from Douala to Crtv for lap 6 of the race.
The 7:30 news on the Cameroon radio television. That's the way it was. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
I urge you once again to put on your face masks, to wash your hands regularly, and to consult a physician or any other health personnel if you notice any symptoms. This is the only way to save lives and to curb the spread of the virus.
The weather forecast with C3 Production.
Welcome to the 3rd day of the month of June, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be with you for this edition of the weather forecast. Tonight, it will be cold across the national territory, and until the morning, I expect you and advise you to have your umbrellas and to cover yourselves because showers will likely prevail in some localities of the